and welcome to this edition of Newsmaker Live. It's been a while since we've had an open mic, and I'm thinking that this evening is no better time than to have an open mic. But first, trending in the news. So this past weekend, St. Lucia, we had some promotions going on in the police force, and it was all about new times, new leadership. 42 coppers got promoted and elevated in their ranks, ranging from corporals or constables to corporals, and from corporals to sergeants and the like. 42. And this amidst, well, to hear the president of the Welfare Association say it, maybe the process was not the most liked, or maybe, well, he did say it was clear, but there is some issue going on with the process. So there are lots of concerns, but he has been magnanimous enough to congratulate the 42 members who have been elevated in ranks. But with the new times and new leadership, the Prime Minister, in his speech, in his remarks to these police officers, made some really interesting and curious remarks. I mean, he made it clear that there are no untouchables in the country's police force. And he has said to them that they should be all accountable and that they will be held to high standards. But he also made mention that the police force and this government, our government, St. Lucia's government, has been held with the most stringent of concerns, or held to stringent accountable measures by foreign governments. Am I the only one curious as to what that means? I mean, I know there is the impacts report that we still don't know the full contents of, and that nothing has been done about that. We know that he has handed it over to the DPP, and that the DPP, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but has proceeded on to pre-retirement leave, which means that pretty soon she'll be retiring, and that there will be a new DPP. We don't know what is in the impacts report. Unless I am mistaken, the leader of the opposition still does not know what is contained within the impacts report. But the Prime Minister off and on makes those curious statements, such as being held accountable and held at higher standards by foreign governments. And it begs the question, the rumor which is going around that the Prime Minister and certain government officials, ministers, parliamentarians, politicians would lose their visas if our government does not act quicker on the results of the impact report. I mean, every day we hear more and more rumors circulating, and the only reason those things happen is because we do not know what is contained within the impacts report. I mean, the Prime Minister made mention glancingly when he first informed us that the impacts report had been handed over to the DPP. He mentioned to us that there were corrupt police officers, corrupt government officials, corrupt politicians, and corrupt businessmen. But in all of this, the spotlight has been focused directly and solely on our police officers. When are we going to hear more, or when is the spotlight going to shift, or when is the spotlight going to be shared by those other concerns, those other people mentioned within the impacts report, such as the corrupt government officials and the corrupt politicians and the corrupt businessmen? We're only hearing about the police force and the sanctions that have been levied against them. We all remember the Leahy Law that has been in effect since the impacts report has been out. But we're hearing nothing about the other concerns, the other segments of our society, of our nation that have been implicated by the impacts report. And speaking of which, the police force, that is, when is the acting police commissioner going to tell us or give us a statement on the drive-by shooting which took place a week ago at the Richford police station? Is this the force that we ought to hold in high esteem when even the force is being shot at? Police officers, yeah, we know that their lives are at risk every time they leave their homes, every day that they go to work, every day that they take their oath to serve and protect seriously. There is a possibility of them not making it home. And we know that we have had police officers who have fallen, police officers who have been killed on the job. But brazen daylight drive-by shooting, criminals shooting at the police station where innocent bystanders or visitors to the police station could have gotten hit. And yet we hear nothing from the Justice Minister, Internal Affairs Minister, nothing from the police commissioner, the acting police commissioner. As a matter of fact, if we hear anything about the police commissioner, it's about how the present police commissioner has been resent on vacation. But the acting police commissioner, we're not hearing anything of substance, even amidst the cry, the hue and cry by the Police Welfare Association that the men and women who have sworn to serve and protect us, even when they say that they're despondent and that the morale is low, it is like pulling teeth to hear anything from the acting police commissioner. My question again is, when are we going to hear about that drive-by shooting which occurred in Richford? And speaking about tempers being flared and passions being high and persons taking, criminals, lawyers, ordinary citizens taking things very passionately, what do you think, St. Lucia, about the passionate affair which took place last Friday between Marcus Foster and the Lambert students? I personally was appalled. And being a very passionate person myself, I can't imagine why. I mean, the news stations even had to bleep out some of the words used by the august lawyer. I mean, what kind of behavior is that? We encourage our children to keep abreast of the things that are happening in the country, and they're watching the news, and this is what they see? This is what they see. And what about his statement that the students should ask the government for their money? You mean Lambert's handed over all of the monies that they collected from those students to the government? And so the government is now prosecuting or holding Lambert's accountable, knowing full well that I just didn't understand what the man was talking about. Honestly, St. Lucia. The students are asking for their monies and you're telling them to go home. We just want you to go home and to be happy. Who would be happy to go home knowing that they've been swindled from thousands and thousands of hard-earned money, and in many cases, borrowed money? You're telling them go home and be happy. And when they ask you for their money, you're telling them the government has the money. Ask the government. And what's this war business? We're ready for war. I'm ready for war. I'm ready for battle. But the battleground keeps shifting. I thought we were a civilized nation. And I didn't know that we had armies in this country. And I didn't know that when people stood up for their rights, that they were going to battle. What in the name of all that is holy was Marcus Foster talking about? Going to war. Very interesting turn of events. And what about Miss Gina Cornier? Some say she has very lofty ideals. I mean, she's been in the news quite frequently. From the first day that she made mention that she was interested in running or becoming a candidate for elections, the next general elections, she just seems to be popping up in the news every week, isn't she? The latest we've heard is that the Public Service Commission has written to her, telling her, articulating the displeasure of her breaking the standing orders of the public service. And prior to that, she was in the news going on about Leonard Spider Montoute hijacking the process, the candidate selection process. I found that just a little bit curious. And the reason I say that is because I've been following this very closely. As you know, anything to do with women and young women at that. I'm all for it, and I'm pushing, I give them the support and whatnot. And I've been following her claims very closely. And it seems to be very curious to me. First, when she came out, I thought, isn't she a public servant? But very ballsy of her and very gutsy of her to come out and to flaunt that. And then she made mention of, her intentions to participate in the candidate selection process of the United Workers' Party, hopefully with a view to emerging victorious. But what really caught my attention was when she said she has no intention of going up against Leonard Spider Montoute, and her intention is to present herself as a viable option for the constituency and to participate in the process. And should she emerge victorious, all good and well. But should she not emerge victorious, then she would work very closely with Leonard Spider Montoute to ensure that the United Workers' Party brings the Groseley constituency back within their ranks. So for me, it was very curious. About 3 weeks after Spider had been unanimously selected as the preferred candidate for Groseley, the Groseley constituency, to hear her now come and say that he has hijacked the process. And a number of the things that she said was very curious to me. So I'm wondering whether there's more in the mortar than there is in the pestle. But I don't want to go too much on that because there'll be more on that hopefully in a subsequent broadcast of this show, Newsmaker Live on DBS. So I'm just going to leave it at that for now, except to say that I find it very, very curious, the turn of events. And it's very exciting times in St. Lucia, where the politics is concerned. A lot of us have a lot of issues, a lot of concerns, a lot of questions, and it's my intention to help you make a decision and to help you get the answers that you're looking for. Because as for myself, as a young woman living in this country, it's also very important for me to know what's going on and who the viable options are, who the candidates, the possible candidates are. And even if they're not successful in their bids to become candidates, who are the men and women who want to represent and to serve us. Very key here is the word serve us. Right? To serve us. Because a lot of the times our politicians don't understand that they're basically glorified public servants of the highest level, but they're public servants nonetheless. They're here to serve us. Also in trending in the news, my last item is the cricket, the blindsiding of the cricket, the blind cricket that has been taking place this past week. It's very unfortunate that the Guyanese team has lost a member. It's always unfortunate when you take a group of people out of your country and you travel with them to represent your country, and not everybody leaves. I think 19 of them came, and only 18 of them will be making the trip back alive, and that's always an unfortunate situation. Also very unfortunate is the fact that I think it was the Barbados captain whom, after a superlative innings, collapsed. I do not know what his final condition right now, but last I heard that he was recovering very nicely at hospital. So our good wishes and thoughts are with him as well, after performing so brilliantly on the field to collapse. And we all know that, the blind persons of this world, the blind people of this world, they're coming in a little bit disadvantaged, a little bit more disadvantaged than the rest of us, because they don't have sight. And so navigating this world is a little bit more tricky for them than it is for us. But to see that they're rising above it all, and that they're doing things normal people wouldn't dare do, it's encouraging, and even that much more disheartening when circumstances such as those which happened the last week happened. So our thoughts and prayers are with the Barbados captain of the blind cricket team from Barbados, and our condolences to the family and friends and teammates of the Guyanese member who passed away this last weekend. More issues when we come back from this break. Remember, it's an open mic.